Hello again! Still Chris, still these, and this week we're discussing the topic of reading. In case you missed our previous episodes, we said that reading is a crucial part of a novelist's life and creative career. The emphasis on reading was to grow as a writer by proxy. Read more, write better. Obviously, this isn't the only way to grow your distinct style and voice as a writer, but it's also the easiest and doesn't often get the attention it deserves outside of the university's creative writing and literature classes. Nevertheless, the literature you consume is the brick and mortar of your advancements with novelistic construction. It should be noted here that a writer and a reader do not read in the same ways. As extra credit says, you have to observe while experiencing. A novelist needs to learn not just how to read, but how to look at the mechanics of a novel. How is the story conveyed? What sort of language is used? And how does this make a piece better or worse? You have to dig a little if you want to see the tricks that authors employ to keep people reading their novels. One of the easiest things to notice while reading a novel is engagement. By this, we mean how interesting a given story is. You already understand engagement whether you intend to or not. Think of a bad book. Something trashy that was just so stupid you couldn't even bother finishing it. Why couldn't you finish reading the book? Engagement. In the case of this crappy book you couldn't finish reading, there was an erroneous lack of engagement. On the flip side, think of a novel that was so addicting you simply couldn't put it down. You as a reader were completely engaged. Engagement is crucial to understand because it's the pulse of your novel. If you can't engage your audience, you're going to lose their attention. The way you notice this engagement in another person's novel is by asking simple questions while you're consuming the literature and look for trends. Every so often as you read, ask yourself questions like these. Are you loving the book or hating it? Then ask yourself why you feel this way. Why does this book rock, or why would you really enjoy throwing this book into a fire? Let's give an example. I didn't enjoy reading Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. I found it really dry and boring, but why? I mean, it sounded like a pretty good concept. I decided to gauge my engagement on the second read-through. The plot was solid, but the text uses first-person monologues and stream of consciousness to convey the story. And this style left me frustrated, because I always felt like the narrator was rambling, and would never get to the point. Being able to analyze your experience as you experience it will give you realizations like this, and learning these ideas of engagement will help you, as a novelist, define what is most engaging and what is least engaging, and incorporate this into your own novel. Voice is another crucial aspect for a writer to spot when reading. Voice is the way which the story is told to a reader. Perspective and narration style play heavily into this. The best way to learn which voice works best for you, as an author, is to read multiple novels that have nothing to do with each other. Imagine reading a novel by Chuck Palahniuk, then reading a novel by Emily Bronte. The literary voices that they incorporate into their novels are completely different, jarringly so. Yet both are famous for their novels. Having knowledge of the ways in which many different authors use different examples of voice will help you know what sort of voice you should incorporate into your own novel, and what readership your novel will receive. When analyzing voice in a novel, look at how the narration is being delivered. Do they prefer a particular perspective, such as first or third person? What sort of words does the author use? Is the writing advanced and intellectual, or is it casual, perhaps to fit the point of view they're using? Where does the author focus narration? Is the story mostly describing the scene, the characters, the emotions, or the action in the scene? Experiencing different voices can allow you to develop your own voice, and an understanding of the importance of voice. It'll teach you what voice is best to incorporate and how, and also what should be best left out. The last topic we'll hit for learning how to read like a novelist is eliminating your biases. There are big and small biases that we deal with on a regular basis when reading. The big ones are the obvious ones. Our preferences for genre, of perspective, of narration style. But there are also many smaller biases we pick up from all the years of being exposed to literature throughout our whole lives. These are called our learned biases. Do you know how a plot is going to read even before you've experienced it? Do you skip over the author's notes, the title pages, the endnotes of a novel because you already know that they're extraneous bits to the novel? These details that we sometimes take for granted are important for writers of novels. We have to remember that every piece of a novel is included for a reason. And oftentimes, innovation comes when people begin to tinker with these tried and true methods that we often forget about. You must be aware of the composition of a novel, and be aware of how you read. If you can learn to control your biases, you'll learn to see a novel from a more objective standpoint, which allows you to better learn how to write your own novel, as you will be able to see your novel from both the position of a writer and the position of a reader. The idea of being aware of your own biases allows you to decrease your personal attachment to a piece. Don't let this sentence fool you either. We're not saying that putting tons of emotion into your novel is a bad thing. On the contrary, that is awesome. But becoming biased towards your work is not going to help you improve as a writer. You have to be able to attach and detach from your novel if you're going to learn anything from creating it. Good words to live by are these. I won't write anything I wouldn't read myself. Imagine yourself seeing your novel on the shelf of a bookstore. Would you want to buy it based on the cover art or quick skimming of the novel? Would you find your story or writing style interesting if it was written by anyone else? Learning to overcome the bias of, I wrote this book, will help you come to terms with whether you're doing a good job or you need to reevaluate your vision. And as always, let's wrap this up. How is this important to you right now? If you apply these tactics to anything you're reading, you'll slowly begin to develop your ability to distinguish the particulars in writing. The more you read, the more you learn, and by extension, the more you grow. Just because you've read a lot doesn't mean you've learned everything from what you've read. And remember never to get cynical. You can't scowl at other writers just because they were successful, even if you think their work is a big pile of rubbish. You might not like them, but if a novel is selling millions of copies per year, is receiving film adaptations, and is earning itself hundreds of credible awards from major literary institutions in the business, it has to be doing something right. But never forget, just because we're writers doesn't mean we can't learn from our peers. And remember, these authors that you see on the bookshelves are your peers. We're all writers together, and just because they've made it before we have doesn't mean we can't catch up. See you later.
So I tied up my feet and jumped into